So a couple of you guys had asked me if I could explain how to do brakes and paddles, and we added a couple tutorials in the one group that I'm in that like other people showing like how to do brakes, but everyone seems to be saying that they're struggling with adding the paddles in. So I just figured that I would break it down and see if I could help explain it. I have an older tutorial on YouTube, but I made it a long time ago and it's probably not very good, so I figured I would remake this and teach it again. So to be able to do this, you need to be able to shoulder hoop, and you got to be pretty good at it, and you also need to be able to do shoulder brakes. So you're going to be able to shoulder hoop, and you also need to be able to do shoulder brakes pretty consistently and try to keep them as level as you can. You may have to almost lean back a little, but you want the plane of the hoop to be staying flat, not like this, not like this. You want it to be as flat as you can while it's going around, and that's really dependent on how straight you're standing and you giving equal force in both pushes. So you want to push this way with the same amount as that way. So I'm trying to keep mine as level as I can to show this, but this is gonna help be the groundwork for it. And it also can't hurt to try to learn to shoulder hoop in both directions, even if it's just a couple rotations. That's something I would say practice. I can't always shoulder hoop in my opposite current, but I can do maybe 3 or 4 rotations before it gets weird, and you're not going to need that many. You only really need a half of a rotation. So if you can do 1 or 2, it's going to make it a lot more solid. So the basic premise behind brakes and paddles is that you're going to brake and then do a paddle, but things are happening almost simultaneously. I'm going to see if I can do it kind of vertically to show you guys. So you're going to brake, but you're also going to have your hand in, and as you're pushing with the brake, you're also pushing with the paddle. So you're this and you push it over, and as soon as you give it the push, your hand's going to immediately come outside the hoop because it's going to go to push the other way. And as soon as you give the push from over here, your hand needs to get ready to go onto the inside because it's going to do the push this way. So it's right is on the outside, left is on the inside, so you're pushing and paddling, and then from over here you're going to push and then paddle. And everyone says they have a really hard time trying to figure out how to paddle, so I'm going to see if I can come down here and kind of break it down. So for me, I know a lot of people say they use their hand. I use this part of my wrist kind of. And basically all it is it's just a gentle little push, almost away from you. If you're swatting a bug away from you. But you have to keep in mind your hoop is round. So if you push straight out, your hoop's gonna fall. If you push to the side, it's not gonna go the way that you want. So while you're doing this push, almost swat motion, you're doing it against the hoop while keeping it level in this even plane. So you're pushing, but around only within the circle. So you don't want to push and push it out this way, or push and push it over that way. It needs to be just gentle enough. Sorry, there's concrete stairs here, but just gentle enough that you're kind of just giving it a nudge, but your hand's kind of keeping contact with it and bringing it around. If that helps any. Let me see if I can do it in this direction so you can see. It's harder to do vertically, but for this camera angle, it might help. And I don't have a camera to go top down, so this is kind of what it would look like if you were to look from above me down. And it's hard to see the hand placements if I just do it this way. It's really hard to tell where my hands are. So as I push with this side, this hand's pushing down right now, but if I were standing up and I push, it would be a push out in front of me. It's really hard to slow down and isolate it. So this side is pushing, and this you can almost imagine as kind of pulling and guiding across. If you were singing and you're dancing and you kind of are bringing your hands across like this. I know it's a weird way to explain it, but that's kind of what it feels like when you kind of bring your hand across, put it in, and then you let it come out from under the hoop and back around to become like the push on the outside instead of the push on the inside. So you're like, it's so hard to do this slow. But, so I hoop to the left, so I'm pushing with my right hand first, but it doesn't really matter in either direction. Like I can start this way too. But yeah, so timing wise, as you're pushing and paddling almost at the same time. I think a lot of people think that you're doing like a break and then you're doing a paddle, and then you're doing a break and then you're doing a paddle, but they're happening like simultaneously. Your arms are both going to start kind of on the same side of your body and like push and work their way over, and then they're both going to be on the other side and push and work their way over. And it's all about like the equal force. Sorry, I have a mosquito bite. So when you're doing it, you're like, no, both are over here. Then they both end up over here. And one thing that I've noticed really helps is if you turn into the direction that like you're going. So if I start on the right and I'm pushing to the left, as I push, turn to the left, then turn to the right, turn to the left, turn to the right. And your hands are almost doing this like if the hoop was in between, they're doing like a switch, like you're here, and then you're coming around and they're gonna end up here. And then you're coming back and they're gonna end up here. So you're like switching back and forth. Again, it almost like feels like a dance. So I don't know if you can see, try to go slow. So it's like one's in and one's out the entire time. But the way that it works is that because there's one out and one in all the time, the hoop's not falling because it's almost like pinched here. And like you're obviously not gonna hold like tight, but this like little point is slightly like a guide. So like as you're pushing like with your hand, like you have like a point of like connection almost. Like it's not gonna actually be like squeezed, but like when I push here and here, like you're pushing from like one arm to the other. So you're pushing onto this and paddling, then you're gonna push from here onto here and paddle. But it's so quick that it's almost like a simultaneous movement. So you're gonna take your right hand and push it onto your left, either the back of your hand or your forearm, then paddle. So like this. Then you're gonna take your left hand and push it onto the right and paddle, and repeat. So right is pushing, left is paddling, then left is pushing, right is paddling. And you're just gonna keep going and keep really like turn into it. You don't necessarily have to use your legs, but like you can just turn your upper body, but you can turn with your legs too. And like the more you turn, it helps like how when you're learning shoulder hoop and you can't really do it, and you can like turn in the direction of the hoop. It's gonna help to keep your planes more level and not get as wonky. And I would also say try to do this with a little bit of a lighter hoop. This is a, I think 5/8 Polypro, but it's a 36-inch hoop. So I do well with this because I have a lot of space. Like you can do this with a smaller hoop, but I at least personally don't think it looks as good when I do it, because the hoop's so small that it's like, it's really hard to keep even because you have to go like 10 times as fast. So the larger the diameter and hoop, the more time you're gonna have to make the arm switches and stuff, but you're gonna wanna have a hoop that's not as heavy. Because if your hoop's really heavy, you're gonna get like really bad bruises here and like on your, like the inside of your wrists and stuff from pushing. And it's really difficult to keep the momentum going in such a heavy hoop when you're breaking it so often. So like when you're doing it, you'll end up breaking and it ends up just like falling because it's like just heavy and the mass is falling. So yeah, this is like 6 inches smaller of a hoop, so that's why it's significantly more difficult, but it's still possible when you work up to it. So yeah, I hope this helps somebody out. I know a few of you were asking me. I didn't mean to make this 10 minutes long, but it kind of happened that way. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know and I will try to help you figure it out.